Okay, it's recording now. Okay. Hi, I have with me Michael Steinmetz. I believe.
That's correct.
Okay. Flow Kana or FK plus functional cannabis. Um, you're gonna have a conversation about kind of his kind of I guess unique kind of cannabis kind of. Can you also blend like functional kind of I want to say functional herbs and other stuff and like other kind of plant medicine and other terpenes and other stuff in it, which is really unique.
Yep.
So from what I get, you kind of like redefined kind of cannabis culture with Flow Kana. What kind of inspired you to evolve that vision into kind of FK plus? What inspired that?
Yeah. So originally, my wife and I we started Flow Kana in 2013 out in the California regulated, adult use market. It worked really, really well. The whole vision did during the medical days of California, which were since 1996 until 2018. And we ended up building the number one brand in the space, one of the biggest operations in California, 5 years in a row, number one brand. It was a beautiful, beautiful journey. But all the California cannabis industry pretty much came crumbling down post legalization. Too many taxes, too many fees, too many permits, too much red tape, all juxtaposed to a flourishing and robust illicit market made it impossible for compliant operators to compete. So basically, California today is pretty much what I call a kind of a sea of distressed assets, okay, of walking zombies. And we ended up separating from California and from that vision, but ended up taking with us all of the intellectual property, all of the brand, and all of that IP, and kind of set to kind of travel around the globe and kind of find what other market we could relaunch in. And we went through Europe and Asia and even Latin America, kind of exploring all the global markets because I'd been so kind of myopically focused on California, I had really no idea what was happening globally in cannabis commerce. And lo and behold, after a long kind of 18-month journey, we ended up back in the US, basically in this legal framework where we're just calling the cannabis hemp. There's no such thing as hemp or cannabis. It's all one plant. And, I was inspired by this new pathway, what actually allowed to treat hemp as agriculture, which then allowed it to mix with other adaptogens and other functional ingredients and medicinal herbs, which we were not allowed to do in California cannabis. So California cannabis, there were strict laws that from seed to sale, you had to kind of track the same plant across the supply chain. And it was not allowed to be blended with anything else. And in this hemp paradigm, we can now bring the toolkit of the entire, of entire Mother Nature, right? Blending herbs, mushrooms, and cannabinoids all together in what I consider kind of these functional formulas that allow you to basically actually live up to the promise of what they say. For so many years living in California, there's this kind of misnomer around sativa, indica. Sativa is good for energy, indica is good for sleep. The truth is, the cannabis plant has been bred and bred and bred and bred so many times that everything is really kind of a hybrid. And actually combining it with these medicinal herbs and these functional ingredients that have all these other properties themselves, the cannabis kind of acts as a catalyst. So I was just really kind of excited about the opportunity to actually create products at that intersection between cannabinoids, functional mushrooms, and medicinal herbs, and kind of in that kind of Venn diagram space right in the middle. And I think we pretty much created some pretty phenomenal products.
Okay, nice, nice. Kind of continuing off that, how was your experiences in the, I'm not really super familiar, but with the Emerald Triangle kind of shape your kind of understanding of plant medicine and sustainability and stuff?
Yeah, so if you kind of follow the story of prohibition at a very high level, and obviously summarizing in many ways, when prohibition comes online, the majority of people that were growing cannabis either go indoors to go into warehouses and into hiding to not be seen by the helicopters, or they move up to Northern California in this pristine, beautiful climate, perfect Mediterranean climate to grow cannabis. And it's such a vast space up there, and these farmers kind of go up in hiding, right? And this whole movement during Prohibition is kind of what started the whole Back to the Land movement, the whole hippie movement, the whole organic movement, because these farmers basically to survive growing cannabis, they kind of live 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours off the main cities and off the main roads. Often these dirt roads completely unplugged from the matrix with solar panels, rain catchment, and completely fully diversified farms, because they have to kind of be sustainable, right? They have to be self-generating when they're so far away from the cities. So they've got, farms that have cabbage and carrots and cucumbers and sunflowers and strawberries and all kinds of farm animals. And cannabis is kind of this cash crop that has helped subsidize that existence for many of them. And this ecosystem proliferated for decades under prohibition, right? To the point that in this region in Northern California called the Emerald Triangle, which literally is a triangle on the map between Mendocino, Humboldt, and Trinity counties. People don't really kind of appreciate the scale, but this triangle is the geographic size of Ireland, okay? And it was home to more than 55,000 cannabis farmers. This is prior to legalization. That's pretty much wiped out the majority of them. But it was an incredible ecosystem, right? It was an incredible ecosystem. It was the first time in my life that I had seen cannabis in its kind of rightful place under the sun and in the soil and outside of these high intensity lamps and heavy electricity and energy environments. And it was a beautiful, beautiful farm ecosystem. And that kind of helped shape the foundation and the pillars that created Flow Kana, which was based on the story of these Emerald Triangle farmers about regenerative agriculture, organic agriculture, sun-grown cannabis. And those same values we carry forward today in this paradigm of hemp, which is completely federally legal. So we actually source all of our cannabis from the same West Coast region, whether it's California, Oregon, even in Colorado, do all sun-grown organic and share cannabis nationwide under those kind of same pillars and values.
Nice, nice, nice. So, your background, I was kind of reading up on it, but it seems like you kind of go from spans everywhere from like kind of NASA to like cannabis entrepreneurship. How does how do those kind of things, I guess, kind of connect? Like being kind of diverse, going from like NASA and then
Yeah. I'd say it's like that famous Steve Jobs speech, the commencement speech from Stanford. I don't know if you ever heard it, but it's a beautiful speech where he basically talks about about this guiding force in life, and it's hard to really connect the dots looking forward. It's only possible to connect the dots looking backwards, right? And
yeah,
sometimes in situations and circumstances, life takes you in ways where you kind of have to trust in it, and then it may reveal its reason many 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 years later. And I kind of feel blessed in the journey that I've had, right? It was a dream come true as a kid to actually work at NASA. My mom made me always do vision boards when I was a kid. So I had a vision board where I wanted to be an astronaut and work at NASA. And that was my first job at a college, actually. I kind of manifested it. And it was a beautiful experience. I worked at Jet Propulsion Laboratory where they built the Mars rover that went to Mars, and they built three of these. Two of them got to Mars, and one of them was left at the facility so that you could troubleshoot it in case something happened. And that was the beginning of my career. And while I was there, while it was very glamorous, fun, and at times challenging, for the most part, the government work was not very driven, not very ambitious. It was very slow moving. It was very bureaucratic, and I got very uninspired very quickly. That led me to kind of like pivot the career in college to more finance, more the mathematical part, I guess, of economics and business. And I pivoted into finance, got into investment banking. Investment banking did that for about a year and a half, 2 years as well. And in that reality was kind of quite miserable, to be honest. I had kind of sacrificed so much. The grueling hours and the amount of work that you have to do in that space is almost unreal. And after 2 years, I kind of like pulled the cord and said, I want to just jump headfirst into entrepreneurship and do my things. But to the point I made earlier around connecting the dots, I'm so grateful for both of those experiences. I think they shaped a lot of my thinking and a lot of who I am. Investment banking, like the skills that you picked up in finance and accounting and, all the different transactions that we worked on, even just the modeling in Excel. And I would say the discipline of work and the discipline of just, hard and long hours. It's kind of something that I was able to apply as a startup, right? Startups is like everything depends on the founder, right? There's just this like idea, this vision, this glimmer of a light of hope that like needs incredible amount of attention, incredible amount of care, incredible amount of hard work. And I think it was those kind of pillars in the past that actually helped shape it. I would say that in both of those activities or both of those jobs or careers, I definitely wanted out. But I'm glad they were part of my life, today as I look back.
Nice, nice. So, I think you touched on it a little bit, but you kind of talked about cannabis and hemp and stuff like that. But when did you kind of realize or kind of come to the thing of kind of wanting to combine it with kind of functional botanicals and herbs and other stuff like that,
Yeah.
kind of blended?
Well, truthfully, it was probably that first visit to the Emerald Triangle that I did in the summer of 2014 when I saw cannabis in its kind of rightful place under the sun and in the soil, accompanied by all these other fruits and vegetables, and I saw it as part of a much larger farm ecosystem. For so long, we've been trained, through Hollywood or through the news around cannabis and these indoor facilities, kind of thuggish kind of vibe to them with like flimsy fans and a Rottweiler, and we've kind of like, I don't know, had this image of a separateness of cannabis, of like this sacred plant that's like so far removed and so psychedelic if you use it in the right way. And truthfully, it's just another agricultural product, right? It's incredible properties, incredible medicinal value, and it's the only plant that really triggers our own body and our own system and our own endocannabinoid system, right? Like we literally have a system in our body that is designed to react to the cannabis. It was almost like we were, almost separated from the same spot. And, I always, even from my Flow Kana days, wanted to blend it with all these other herbs and all these other mushrooms, and never could actually because of regulation. So I think as soon as I was able to find this new legal framework, which is basically going to become the default of legalization, I think nationwide. In fact, very huge announcement yesterday. Target, the first huge retailer, public company, announced a test pilot of THC beverages in Minnesota. And it's all over the news because it's like just shows how the adoption of cannabis in terms of a functional ingredient is is supremely important, right? And our products, the uniqueness about our products is that they're not just what a lot of people do, which is fairy dusting, which is a drop of the ashwagandha or a drop of the lavender just to have a label claim. Like we actually have supplement grade levels of the herbs and mushrooms. So when you take a focus gummy, for example, there's, ginkgo biloba, there's lion's mane, there's rosemary, there's yerba mate, there's, 3,500 milligrams of lion's mane, right? This is like a daily supplement that just happens to have cannabinoids as another ingredient. And I think that the world will just slowly realize that, cannabis is a miraculous plant in many ways. It has more than 150 other cannabinoids beyond just THC, and they all serve a purpose. And they actually work in harmony and in synergy better with the other herbs and the other mushrooms of which they all come from, So I don't know. We just kind of started tinkering with it, truthfully. And I was actually out of the US. I was living in Europe in Lisbon with my wife and my kids in school. And it was the first time I tried an edible product that I kind of actually felt that actually lived up to its promise. Most of the time I had an edible living in California, just whether it was sleep or energy or this or that, it just kind of just felt like it got me high. And, with these herbs and mushrooms, it actually kind of synergizes with the cannabis in a truly magical way. And I think we're going to see more of this. Hopefully this is just the beginning of many other people introducing cannabis into their functional formulas.
Nice, nice. So kind of touching on the philosophy of the company, the tagline, I believe on the website, maybe elsewhere, is
Mm-hmm.
Life on Plus.
Mm-hmm.
Is it feels like kind of both of the kind of like a lifestyle and mindset. How would you kind of define that in your own words?
Yeah, so it's we use that phrase "life on plus" a lot, and I think it kind of speaks to a lot of the philosophy that I think my wife and I we kind of like try to live by, right? As much as happens, it is an opportunity to invite people to not just to go through life, but to go through life like on plus, right? Like in terms of our products, like the Focus product, right? You can wake up and you can have your coffee and you can get down into an Excel spreadsheet, or you can take this wellness supplement. The Focus product is a daily supplement with ginkgo biloba and lion's mane, which after 4 to 6 weeks you start feeling how these adaptogens kind of remove the grogginess from you. There's an energy gummy, right? So when you go to the beach or you go on a hike or you go on a walk or you go on a bike ride, you can kind of like go through it with your daily motions, or you can kind of take these like what I consider these plant powered boosts. The same thing with relax, right? After this call, it's I'm on East Coast, so it's 3:19 over here, and it'll be 4 o'clock when I ended, I look forward to taking a relaxed gummy and then spending the afternoon with my kids and playing puzzles and playing, painting, et cetera, et cetera. So, for us, the whole essence of FK Plus is allowing people to connect with that deeper sense of themselves, and also to be the best versions of themselves at every moment of the day. And we've started off with these kind of four formulations: focus, energy, relax, and sleep, which kind of it's our way of kind of saying it's like your daily companion all throughout your day. And now we're going into deep R&D for very hyper focused type of problems and solutions, like a PMS cramps and a joint relief and a biohacking longevity one. And I'm just kind of excited to start introducing cannabinoids to all these other wellness supplement categories that exist out there in the world.
Okay, nice. Um, let's see. We kind of, I don't know if you noticed, but I kind of crashed on Zoom for a bit and then it
Okay.
restarted. But luckily,
Oh no.
it caught most of what you're saying, so
Okay.
hopefully that won't happen again. But um, let me see. Hmm. So you kind of touched on it, but how do you? I know you combine kind of a lot of different
Hmm.
cannabinoids, mushrooms, and herbs and stuff. How do you kind of approach that from a, I guess, kind of a scientific, but also like energetic standpoint of like how do you come up with these formulas and
Totally.
stuff like that?
So one of my business partners in this project is a gentleman called Kevin Hasselbacher. Okay, and he's an older gentleman in his late 60s, been in kind of food and beverage his whole life, and he used to work with me at the old Flow Kana. So I brought him on in 2019 to be my COO. Okay, and his background was in food and beverage, but his job prior to joining us was with traditional medicinals. And traditional medicinals, if you probably don't recognize the name, but if you Google it and look at the images, you probably have their teas in your cupboard. Okay, it's the largest herbal tea company in the U.S. uh, both North America, Canada, Mexico, and US combined. And he brought in a different set of people from that organization to help us formulate and actually come up with these products. So my background is more in business and in marketing and in branding and in messaging. I know zero about herbal formulation. I do know a lot about cannabinoids and cannabis science. So I brought together another good friend of mine who's been a cannabis tinkerer probably for decades, combined it with a chief science officer of traditional medicinals to actually bring in a lot of that science forward. So, if you hear her, she's a very, very visionary, spiritual, connected woman, very inspiring. I admire her greatly. And she's the type of person that has a garden and connects with her plants and talks to them every day. Right. And when we started talking about these formulations, there was a lot of intention setting at first. Like, what do we want to achieve from a potency level, from a functionality level, from a feeling level? And there was a whole journey that we went through, both debating theoretically and then also in practice as we iterated through the formulas to make sure that we got them just right. So I would say that there's a deep science of the herbal and functional side within each of the gummy products that we have. And I'd say that, sadly, because of cannabis prohibition, we haven't had enough science and enough data, enough research to prove how the cannabinoids interact with the herbs. So I can only speak to it anecdotally based on us and the thousands of customers and tens of thousands of customers that we've served already, is the entourage effect across these botanicals. It really is kind of the next frontier in the functional wellness kind of revolution, right? We're seeing functional ingredients and functional mushrooms and coffee and ryes and all these like supplement of coffee and supplement of this, and we're seeing it in beverages and salts and energy drinks, etc. And I'm just excited to kind of start seeing cannabinoids being part of the equation. And that's kind of, I think it was kind of a journey to get to where we are today with the formulations. To your point, it's a lot of intention setting and kind of discussions up front, and then kind of seeing what the work comes out to with the actual formulations. But we did probably, I don't know, 6 to 8 months of trial and error. Some of these formulas we nailed on the second, third time. Some of them took us like 8, 9 times to get to where we wanted to get to.
Nice.
Also, our formulas, none of them have artificial colors or artificial sweeteners. They're vegan, pectin. So we had to get to like flavoring and taste and sweetness through natural means, which was much harder. And a lot of the gummy manufacturers that you see out there in the world, and gummy products of cannabis are just kind of sugar coated gummies that are super potent, and that's what these co-packers are kind of used to doing. So it took us a while to actually to get to where we wanted to get to through our co-packers too.
Oh yeah, yeah. Speaking on that, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but can you kind of further explain? You said no kind of fairy dusting and how you kind of get more, I want to say like a functional kind of dosage of all these other herbs and stuff like that, or how do you kind
Mm-hmm.
of come about that, or can you further kind of explain on that a little bit?
How do we get to the numbers and the dosage?
Yeah, yeah, like kind of how you ensure kind of like true functional potency, because I
Yeah,
know,
totally. So the I mean again the chief science officer that we have basically is PhD scientist from Stanford, turned herbalist the last 30 years of her life. So like she studied deep herbalism and plant science. So there's FDA supplement level grade numbers and thresholds of actually making these ingredients efficacious or making efficacious, yeah,
yeah, yeah, I
to make
would,
them effective.
yeah, yeah,
So a lot of the science like literally came from her wisdom. I'd say I played a role in the whole cannabinoid ratios and tinkering with those with the scientists that we brought to the table and from the cannabis side, but on the herbal and functional ingredient side, like it was all her. Like she was one of the cases that came up with all that magic. And these are supplement grade levels, right? When you think about supplements online and Seed and Take Thesis and Momentous and all these kind of leading brands and AG1, et cetera. They try to get to these levels of these products that actually make a difference, right? And what I would say the difference of the cannabinoids is a lot of the herbs and a lot of the mushrooms are kind of more like they're called like tonics. Like they like you'll take it, you'll take a big dose of lion's mane today. Like you're not going to wake up less groggy and more focused tomorrow, right? Like you have to do this over time, over prolonged periods of time for the body to actually assimilate the product and actually make the changes. So it'll take you 4 to 6 weeks to actually start feeling the effects of just the herbs and the mushrooms alone. And I think that's why these products are slow to adopt because it's a kind of like it's a promise to the consumer that's out there in the future rather than immediate. And with the cannabinoids, even our like kind of very low dosed ones, you'll have an immediate effect, right? Like you'll feel it in your body instantly. The cannabinoids have that presence, right? They're instant and they're louder. They take that field. So kind of the consumers have an experience, and then over time are benefited by the benefits of the herb. So that's kind of I would say the uniqueness of cannabinoids in the supplement space that we're not giving them a promise like, hey, do this for 60 days before you start feeling anything. Is like you start feeling the effects almost kind of immediately, and then prolonged effects start kicking in a little bit later.
nice, nice. So I think you've touched on that before, but how do you kind of balance kind of I want to say kind of evidence-based science with kind of traditional and kind of ancestral kind of herbal knowledge in your products?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's I would say that there's obviously like an obsession, right, in this world of these like evidence-based science and like the Western side of medicine, right? And I feel like cannabis is kind of like maybe going to be the glue um, that blurs the line between both worlds, right? You have this world of like FDA trained doctors, Mount Sinai, these huge hospitals, and then you have this other world of Chinese medicine, integrative health, Ayurvedic medicine, and some of these people that have kind of been on the fringe of like the FDA. And in my view, there's enough evidence on these herbs of ancestral use, right? We've been using these herbs for millennia, okay, curing certain diseases and ailments, right? You have turmeric, you have ginger, you have arnica, you have all these huge, incredibly beneficial products that exist out in the world, and now you have like the early days of cannabinoids, right? And it's kind of fascinating, right? Because you have this kind of pressure around, will the cannabis industry look like another pharma industry, right? Where you're going to have epidiolecs and cannabinoids in a molecule solving what's that called? A, when you have the seizures. Anyways, I just went blank. But anyways, will you have it be like a pharma model in a bottle, or will it be a kind of a more therapeutic herbal kind of world? And hopefully it's kind of like right in the middle, right? Hopefully cannabis is kind of charting its own path, because the truth is the cannabis plant, and you saw this with like the boom of CBD. right? In 2018, there was like when the federal farm bill legalized CBD, like there was CBD in everything, like CBD in pet food and CBD in toothpaste and CBD in hummus. Like it was just like all over the world. And the truth is that CBD as a single molecule does actually very little, right? And it was almost like snake oil, and consumers at large started feeling like, oh, the CBD stuff really doesn't do much. What really magical about the plant is the entourage effect across all the cannabinoids and all the terpenes and all the components of the plant. So it's more of a full plant, full spectrum extract that we're looking at, and less of a single molecule science from the Western world. So I think that there's to your point, how do we balance between the two? I wouldn't say there's like a script that we follow, Jared. I don't think there's like a formula that we follow. I think we feel a lot, to your point around vibrationally where this formula is going, how consumers and our kind of focus groups are engaging with it, and then from there, we make a we make some best informed decisions that I can roll out the products.
Okay, nice, nice. I just got a notification. I don't know if you saw it because
Yeah, I see it.
in
There's
about 10
7 o'clock.
minutes or so.
Yeah, we can wrap up.
But yeah, if there's anything you want to add or like, I don't know, kind of like reflection of on like the journey or kind of what like next steps. I don't know if you have other products or other um
Yeah.
like vision for the
So we
future for the brand or
For sure, Jared. I mean, so we talked a lot about the gummies and I would say the herbs, the mushroom, the cannabis, and the benefits of that. I think we spoke to that at length. So that's one of the platforms that we have. I consider it kind of like the gummy is just a platform, is just a vessel. It just delivers this, herbal, wisdom and the cannabinoids. The other platform that we have is, on the pre-rolls. Okay. So we have pre-rolls as well in the same kind of formulas: focus, energy, relax, and sleep. Okay. And the pre rolls don't have the mushrooms and don't have the herbs. These are just pure sun grown flower. But what I'm able to do now in hemp that I was not able to do in cannabis, and again, it's the same plant, is I'm able to blend different types of cannabis or hemp, different types of flower together to create these effects. Right. In California, I was limited to just like from seed to sale, the plant could not be blended or mixed with anything else. Now I can actually grab this flower with this flower and this flower and blend it together to create these like very consistent, unique blends. So for instance, the focus pre-roll, you say like, how am I going to smoke weed and get focused, right? It's like, this will literally dial you in. And how does it do it? Well, the flower is, out of 100% in a joint. Okay. If this is your joint, out of 100% of the joint, 10% of it is like what's known as a sativa flower, even though that doesn't make sense, but it's like a regular THC flower is just 10%. The other 70% is this CBG rich flower, okay? And the other 20% is a CBD flower. So this 90% that's not THC is CBG, CBD, CBC, and all these other cannabinoids that are naturally occurring. So we've brought different strains that exhibit this at higher quantities and blended it together in what is a incredible, unique blend. So, our pre-rolls on the same side, Jared, just like we've innovated, I think, in for lack of a better word, disrupted or playing in this kind of intersection of all these herbs, mushrooms, and cannabinoids. On the pre-roll side, there's a lot of science that went into the formulations as well, because we grab these different flowers. We add all natural cannabis oils into it. So we'll add more CBD, we'll add more CBN, we'll add terpenes that are all naturally derived from the cannabis plant too, and make these kind of functional blends that we call them. So it's kind of like a pre-roll 2.0. Okay. And it's been super exciting, right? Because all these innovations I was never allowed to do in California, and we're excited to put these things forward. And I think our customers are responding incredibly favorably. We have an unusual amount of repeat customers, which is super exciting. And what's next, Jared? We want to keep kind of innovating on different platforms, right? Gummies and pre-rolls are just one of them. We're launching several, I would say, probably by Q1 of next year. We're launching probably a new gummy flavor, probably a month or a quarter. We also want to get into beverages. Beverages is if you, I guess you're in I don't know what's like in kind of Washington area with the beverages, but there's huge markets in Texas and Chicago and New York and Florida, where these beverages have just taken over, like THC beverages, right? And it's super interesting to see because you see the consumers just demanding a new type of experience, right? They're demanding basically, the same fun without any of the calories, any of the hangover. So, it's pretty exciting, man. I think we're just kind of at the cusp of seeing kind of cannabis becoming mainstream with this kind of like hemp paradigm that makes it kind of fully federally legal and shipped nationwide. And I think this is just the beginning. I think if you fast forward into a couple of years, you'll just see cannabis as just like a normal ingredient, like a caffeine or anything else that you see in your products. And that's exciting because it belongs, at reach for everyone over 21, of course.
Yeah, yeah. Nice. Uh, yeah, that sounds good. I want to thank you for coming on my podcast and stuff. And it was a really awesome episode. Learned a lot. I don't, I don't, to be honest, I don't smoke or use cannabis as much as I do, but I do like the functional aspect. I know I do appreciate
Yeah,
the welcome or the kind of the trial pack that you sent me in. It was
you
nice
said,
box and
yep,
packaging and everything. But I want to thank you for coming on and possibly in the future I can have you on or maybe expand on it, maybe
for
do
sure.
a longer episode or conversation and stuff. But it was nice having you on.
Likewise, man. I appreciate your time and I appreciate your energy. And if you haven't already, I encourage you to start with the Focus gummy. That's a super low dose. If you don't like cannabinoids, it's like you'll feel great. It's like the almost the one where you're impossible to have too much of an experience, right?
Yeah.
So give them a try. These are dosed like very very easy to do. Like the packet comes with two gummies. Okay, so inside of it, if you're a beginner, start with one. If you're more advanced, take both of them. Okay,
Yeah.
so in any event, I just wanted to share that to like encourage you to give it a try. Thank you for your time, brother. Thank you for what you do, and happy to join you at any time.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks.